You guys ever seen a tank in the game this broken? Probably not. That's right. Jae has over 170 armor. That beats Ulfar and even Abelard. He's back on the ship at the end of the game. But this build has been a miracle. The way I discovered it is kind of odd. It's all thanks to this item right here. This busted tank item. You can get this as early as Act 2, in fact, through the Foulstone projects. Now, it's absolutely crucial to grab this item if you want to play as a tank and achieve as much armor as you see right now. Without it, I don't think you can get these numbers. So I made a video dedicated to how to unlock this item, and I'm going to throw the link somewhere in the video or down in the description, because it's kind of tricky how to get it. It seems to be either a bug or it's just a coincidence. I happen to build the projects in a certain way, and as soon as I saw the item, the two things clicked in my mind and I came up with this build. I've figured out a decent way to make her not only viable, she is an amazing skill monkey because she can scale everything. So I have the no heresy talent, so these two are pretty bad, but everything else is kind of crazy. Everything else that scales off fellowship, at least, thanks to her necklace. Now, if you don't know how to get this necklace, you have to romance her, and when you choose a gift, you have to choose the jewelry option. That will give you access to this necklace. Now, both items are mandatory because they work off each other. When you wear the necklace, it makes Lore Imperium scale off fellowship instead of intellect. So combine the two, and this is how you achieve insane amounts of armor with her. Since she's an iconoclast, she has a quick look on her gear, so she has this, which scales off her fellowship. I gave her this because none of my other characters have use for heavy armor. Ulfar does, but he has his own set of armor. This is just more Lore Imperium to combo with this thing. It's debatable whether or not you can also use this, but if you want to make her your main skill monkey, I suppose. But I just decided this character is a skill monkey, so I figured no need for that. So I gave her this to get the maximum amount of Lore Imperium. It's better to use a sword and a pistol because she does have a talent where that works better for her. And this is practically the best sword to get on her if you don't have it, because it does come pretty late in the game. You can go with something you can get off pretty early. Where is it? There it is. After saving Earliette's, after doing Earliette's quest, then you go to the cache, you get this sword, which is also not a bad thing. Actually, she's been using this the entirety of the game until I came across this one. And the pistol is up to your choice. I like this because, well, it's effective if I'm trying to hit enemies behind cover. But when she's not playing, or it's not her turn, it's probably better to go with the two-hander to get more aggressive value out of her, because this build revolves around attacks of opportunity through defensive stance. So if you're using a two-hander and you parry, and then you hit with a strong two-hander, she will probably do more damage that way. But when she is playing her turn, you might want to switch to the pistol and the dual wield, basically. So, these are the gloves. This is the back. So she is even more tankier. In the feet, there's a lot of options, but the reason why you'd want an officer / Vanguard in your team is to enable a lot of your melee units in the team. That would be my Heinrichs and Ulfar, and possibly your main character if they were one also. Moving on to the talents. The reason why this is very busted on Jae particularly is because of the Cold Trader talent. If I can find it here somewhere. There we go, Cold Trader's Acumen. This is the secret sauce that even bumps this build even higher and makes it stronger. Due to this talent, when you work with certain factions, you get more benefits. For example, Drusians give her more lore Imperium, which is absolutely critical for this build, right? Kasballica Mission is also a good pick because you get more parry, and therefore you could do more attacks of opportunity with it. The rest of the other factions are meh, really. I mean, they're fine, but you won't get anything critical to the idea of this build. So, if you want to do this, you would want to focus on Drusians and Kasballica Mission, and the rest are fillers. When it comes to rewards, the Drusians offer better rewards for her. The armor she is wearing right now is from the Drusians faction. Moving on to the leveling, you can't really do much when she comes in your team. Her officer talents are all selected for you, and they are pretty bad. Well, not super bad. I mean, finest hour is finest hour. It's amazing, but still, it's not the best modifiers for it. Then she has Fellowship here, Nimble, which is not going to really do much for this build. This is more parry focused. Move is amazing to enable all your melee units. This is alright. I mean, it's not amazing. March. This is like a complementary buff to move. When you buff your allies to move around, she gets more movement points, which makes her pretty good at frontlining and moving around the field. So yeah, just think of it as a buff to, or a complement to move. Commerce, never gonna be worth it. Finest hours, they did pick the first one, which is good. However, when the second modifier is a disaster, I think. This would be like your best option right here. These two right here. But for some reason, the developers thought that they'd give her this one. It is what it is. Fortunately, she does come with one skill up of Lore Imperium, which is good. Ballistic, it's alright. Leader's Assault, more Fellowship for free when she attacks. Take aim, it's alright, but if you want to enable your melee units even more, it would have been better if we got this. We will grab it anyway, but it would have been nice if she came with this instead, so we can go with Air of Authority. But it is what it is. We're gonna have to settle for what it is, you know. Then next she comes with more Ballistic, Lore Imperium. Heroism is nice to have whenever we use a heroic act. She can act for free using officer skills, like move, take aim, etc. Willpower, useless. Fellowship is alright, but it's one of the generic ones, which is a bummer. And that covers her officer talents. Now this is where the magic happens. You could select Vanguard, and the first thing we want to grab, it's kind of an optional thing, but I think since she doesn't come as a warrior, you really need a taunt to have an effective tank. And this is great. It kind of works similar to a taunt, except that you have to target an ally. And if you have a melee-oriented team, that can be easily achieved, right? And then here, you want to pick Strength, because we want to make her wear heavy armor as soon as possible. So your first thing is to grab a taunt, and then characteristic training Strength. Why? Because that'll make it possible for us to advance strength in these future stat level ups. and eventually we need 45 to get to heavy armor, right? So next you can go with more armor and parry, because she comes very squishy early game. You want to just grab all the defensive things to make her even viable. But to be fair, on when it comes to higher difficulties, she's probably going to be useless until the very end of of chapter 2. This is the ultimate, pretty straightforward. Here we grab more strength. That brings us to a total of 15, which should cover what you need to unlock heavy armor. You could unlock it as soon as this level, so around 21, 2, 3, 4, 24, 25. But instead I settled for this. So the more people I taunt, the more armor I generate. Because you have the Lore Imperium trinket, and you can bump her Imperium lore so high, along with her necklace, that makes it a fellowship stat. You can tank with medium armor on daring difficulty and below, but if you're playing on unfair, you might want to delay her being a tank much further, like the very end of chapter 2, for instance. So anyway, this is what I settled for, and then this is where the magic happens, is she can parry and then do a lot of attacks of opportunity, which is, you might think it's bad, but you get more value out of it than you think. Just by virtue of having Cassia around and having her navigator talent that makes all the attacks of opportunity never miss, effectively whenever people attack her or enemies have her as a priority target and they do stuff and she parries, you will get so much value out of this tank. It's better than just having a meat sack sitting there doing nothing. Whenever their turn comes up, you just refresh the buffs and that's it. You know, it feels pretty bad to play tanks unless you do this, basically. This feels more dynamic, more interactive. You could buff, you could have finest hour, so you don't feel bad using an ultimate on a tank, and so forth. So, moving on, this is everything now. When it comes to skills, we will always settle for Imperium. If that's covered and maxed, we just pick whatever else we want. Here I went with taunting defense. Whenever they have someone taunted, they get more parry, because the more parry they have, the more attacks of opportunity they will do. And then it will not die, just to bump her up. I am playing on unfair, so this is more HP is better, you know. She still has less HP than like Ulfar and Abelard, but with this high amount of mitigation, it doesn't matter really. So you can effectively even not grab this on lower difficulties. You can go with more like Lore Imperium here, but you only get like 1 or 2% extra. It's not going to be a huge deal, but it is an option. Or you could even settle for something like ballistic, or just a mix of things if you are enjoying her being a dual wield character. But yeah, moving on. You always want to focus on fellowship. Once you max fellowship, you'd want to go to toughness. Once you max toughness, you can go for a weapon skill. That's the order in which I prioritized her stats. Strength, we only grabbed enough to unlock heavy armor and power armor, and that should be enough for it, really. You don't have to do more than that. It's debatable whether skipping weapon skill and grabbing more strength might increase her attacks of opportunity. I could see a value in that. However, there are instances in which after buffing and doing everything during her turn, I always found myself able to at least sneak an attack in there, and I would like to land it. So having less chances of missing is better than just missing all the time, but when it lands, it does major damage. So, you know, I'd like to have consistency in my builds. So after that, we go with more parries, and then counterattack stance to improve her defensive stance, so that she does more damage with it. Again, with Cassia around in the team, the penalties don't matter, but I wanted to grab it because of the increase in damage to the attack of opportunity. Then here we just went with more Imperium, more Fellowship. Unyielding Guard is next turn. Oh, that's the ultimate upgrade. You will always use Finest Hour usually, but if you're caught in a bad position and you want her to stay alive, this is like a nice alternative to use. And then after that, we finally settled for heavy armor proficiency. And then here I kind of ran out of Imperium was locked, so I gave her Carouse because it doesn't really matter. I have everything covered from the group, so you can pick whichever you want here. Toughness, because Fellowship was locked at the time when we reached this point. And then this is what makes Vanguard so special in my eyes, combined with an officer. So this scales off Fellowship, this spell right here. And effectively it's going to make her do more damage and have more armor penetration. And on top of that, when allies start their turn, they have a free ability to move closer to the Vanguard, and that would be your melee units, and just have her be this amazing support on top of her tanking capabilities, you know. And then we went with Punish the Imprudent. Once per round, whenever an enemy considers the Vanguard a priority target, enters a cell, she also, on top of it, does an attack of opportunity, you know. Whenever she is not playing and enemies are attacking her, you are still getting so much value out of her. It is amazing to see. And here we went with more Toughness, Carouse, because Imperium was locked. Protective Ward. All allies affected by the Vanguard's abilities suffer less critical hit or critical damage. You could settle for a lot of other things, but I felt like this was a good pick. So whenever my melee units are close to her and they get the unyielding stacks, they can be slightly more tankier in case I was facing enemies that are doing AoE damage, area attacks, or something like that. But if you don't like that, you can settle for so much more. There is Enduring Shield, there is Formidable Distraction, so much to do. And then here I went with more Toughness from a generic pick, talent down here. But you could go for anything else, really. You could go for more Imperium or more. You could go for this even. Or if she is the only Vanguard, this might be a good pick also. Right? And as for the second ultimate, you will rarely ever use it, but anything really works here. My preference is this one. If you're playing on unfair, it does help. But again, anything works. This is even like a free taunt, but already she is doing that with her attacks of opportunity, so no need for that. After doing all this and you reach Exemplar, my first pick was +5 on everything. Why? because that'll bump her fellowship up, which will bump her lore imperium up. And on top of that, this is 5 everything, so that includes like more imperium. So you'll get 10 points of lore imperium for free. So that was my first pick. And then I went with more resolve, so that when I buff, I get more momentum. But you can grab anything really that you would like, because this is your opportunity to fix her officer talents. Things like focus are amazing. Be vigilant if you your team is doing a lot of opportunity attacks. What else? We have lead by example is okay. Steel resolve is the one I picked. Lasting impression, whichever you fancy really, but I prefer to have more resolve. And then here we are always going to focus on Imperium. This is the main stat that makes this build work. And then the Resilient Beacon, because that's when enemies start to get kind of tough in Act 3. Even with heavy armor, you do get hit a lot. And since you're not a warrior, you can't really boost your deflection or benefit that much from it at this point of the game. So this is to compensate for that. And then here we went with more fellowship, then combat masters. So since I don't have Abelard's brace for impact, I feel like this is kind of necessary if you want to sneak a few attacks here and there while being overwhelmed by enemies, right? Now this is the skill that makes this class, in my opinion, so much fun. Break their ranks. When you have melee oriented characters, you could use a voice of command on them first, and then when they're up and close to an enemy, you can get attacks of opportunity when you buff them with this. Here's more lore Imperium. And here I settled for flag barrier, so she could essentially buff whoever's next to her and make them even more tankier. In my team's case here, it will be Heinrichs and Ulfar. If you don't like the idea of that, you can go with Firebrand to make her bring it down even stronger. Or you could go with Eager Subordinates. You could also go with Attention. There's so many options here. But I settled for this because I already have 2 officers in my team, my main character and my Cassia. So I figured, let's give her flag barrier and just make her this frontliner that is actually also buffing my entire team with a damage aura and a tank buff, Formidable distraction. All enemies in 2-cell radius around the Vanguard suffer penalty to dodge against all attacks except the Vanguards. So whenever she's next to enemies, your teammates can land hits, and this comes handy when you're facing a lot of Xenos enemies or just high dodge enemies in general. Here we went with more fellowship, focus to compensate for her shitty officer talents. And then this will allow you to do more attacks of opportunity with your melee units. And we went for toughness because fellowship was maxed. Overwhelming provocation. If the target of the provocation is hit by at least 1 attack of opportunity caused by provocation, the target gains 1 stack of fatigue. So now we are debuffing enemies, plus 10 penalty to strength, and it stacks. Now here is your only opportunity to get power armor early. At this stage of the game, you should have been able to max out your Drusian faction. If not, it shouldn't be too hard to do so anyway. Because if you don't grab it now, you're gonna have to wait all the way towards the end of the game, last 3 or 4 levels, and it kind of sucks. I want to get this sooner so I can get to enjoy her being, you know, tankier and looking badass, basically. But there are options if you don't want the power armor, or you happen to be using it on your main character or something. There are options to grab. Once again, I skipped these because they're like minimal increases, but you can grab this, or you can grab something like perception or weapon skill. Just change your pistol of some sort. Meltas are pretty solid, I think. But yeah, I settled for this for now. Carouse, because Imperium was maxed. Peak condition, so that you can bump her strength even higher now and not feel bad about not working or leveling her strength. So she will hit pretty decent now. Or if combined with steel, you could you know, replace it with steel shell. Would be arguably best, but I felt like I had so much armor to the point where deflection, things like that, didn't matter. So I waited on steel shell for like the very last talent, I think, because the last few engagements are kind of rough on tanks. Toughest steel might be also a great pick to combine with peak condition. Most people would go this first and then peak condition, or vice versa, or whatever. But again, she has so much armor, I didn't feel like I needed to get more health on her. And if you do combine peak condition and tough as steel, you only get like minimal strength increases, like 5 or 10 or something like that, if you combine the two. So it's not really that amazing, it felt like. Here you just get the action point. Steady, this would improve your take aim, since she already comes with it, and I have a sniper with me. Might as well grab it and make use of it. Otherwise you can go with anything you fancy from the officer talents, something like more resistance tests or lead by example. I always skip on it, but it is an option. Bring it down is also great, but I felt like by round 2 or round 3 everything is dead anyway, so my entire team is doing so much damage that having an improved bring it down is not going to do much. You only get 4 extra damage out of it anyway, as opposed to having this scale off the range between the attacker and the target. For a sniper, this brings so much more value, I felt like. So here I finally picked Medicae because I ran out of things to do, really. Carouse was not really doing it. There isn't a lot of checks that go off it anyway, so having the ability to heal on her is nice. You can even, in fact, grab this so much sooner, but I delayed it, you know, long enough. Be vigilant. This makes the attacks of opportunity do more damage, and you know, you could even grab this sooner. I for some reason delayed it. But yeah, Medicae, defensive comrade. While the Vanguard at least has 1 ally in the 2-cell radius, the Vanguard gains 11% parry. More toughness, athletics, because I don't know, just at this point I didn't care what other things I could do, and Imperium was locked out for me, so yeah. Full attention. Whenever enemies have a priority target, usually it's her, your entire team is 40% less likely to die, or take massive damage. Then no heresy. I didn't pick this on any of my allies, so I thought might as well pick it, because the only alternative would be either doing my part, ready to serve, or any of the officer talents that you think are a must on your team. But I felt like this will be better pick. So if I'm facing Xenos or demonic creatures, I'd even have 180 armor, Enduring Shield of the Vanguard at least has one temporary wound that's easy to achieve. She gets even more parry and armor. Athletics, Unyielding Resolve. You will find that it's easy to gain so many stacks of Unyielding Resolve, so getting even more resolve from that is better. There's a good option. If you don't like that, you can go with some of her Master Tactician, Vanguard talents. I skipped on a few good ones. I know there's a lot of good ones out there. On your feet, for example. Some more movement, more armor for your team if they're buffed by you. If you have a heavy AoE team, this might be a good pick. Or just improving your Wall of Rock crate or whatever it's called. But yeah, I settled for more resolve. Better to Die for the Emperor. This could arguably be picked earlier when she is not as tanky, but I delayed it to the point where I kind of ran out of things to pick, so I figured might as well. If she is about to die, she'll get +10 to all her stuff, and that will give her even more armor because Fellowship will go up, and then that will scale the armor. So come to think of it, if I build her this way again in the future, I think this is a better pick to do early, as opposed to a lot of the fillers that I've been doing. Here you can have either Heir of Authority, but I already have 2 of those on my other 2 officers, so I figured I would settle for more Vanguard stuff, and I picked this so I could buff my team on my first turn with a lot of temporary HP, and once again they will take less damage, 50% less damage from the next attack that would happen to hit them. Toughness, and here we went with Steel Shell, because this late in the game it is possible to still hit her pretty hard, and I figured if it's a single attack hit, she might as well double her deflection, bringing it up to 20, therefore tanking even more. And then Taunting Opportunity. Whenever the Vanguard hits an enemy, that enemy must pass a willpower test, so I don't have to rely on taunting or having my allies near enemies to taunt. She could just do that naturally through parrying, and essentially not lose the attention of the enemy whatsoever. Nothing. And then the last level doesn't matter, it's just an extra thing. Extra ability point. So yeah, that covers it. Pretty much. Now for the demonstration on how you'd want to use her in actual combat. First round, obviously you want to, buff everyone, get all the buffs rolling. Having a Sanctic Psyker in the team is nice, so you can give everyone resolve, deflection. Heinrichs is perfect because he also comes as a Biomancer, and I made it where the buffs give more toughness. So I'm speeding through all the allies' rolls here, sometimes intentionally skipping just so she comes up. Now you give move to your melee unit, you send them in, park them there next to the enemy, then you want to taunt, and because you have the improved move or the march talent, she has so much movement so you can close the gap easy. Always do follow my lead in defensive stance. Now you do the attacks of opportunity, and then even ult and do other stuff like that. Here she was around level 43, 44, something like that. And as you can see, she is already so tanky, taking damage. These units are on unfair difficulty, and these usually hit pretty hard, you know. She's only taking like 2 damage, sometimes dodging most of it, you know. So once again, I'll try to speed through the allies' turns, sometimes intentionally skipping. Whenever Heinrichs is up, I want to refresh the deflection and resolve and so forth. So right now I'm trying to move him in further to demonstrate how you'd want to use her officer skills. As you can see, whenever she is hit in melee range, 9 times out of 10 she would parry and then throw in an attack as well, which is amazing. There we go, another solid hit. Now, in this setting, you want to continue buffing. You could use the 2 attacks of opportunity skills that you have. That was one of them, and the other is provocation. However, you want to be close to the enemy in order to use it. Boom. Alright. And that's kind of the general gist of it, you know? That's how you want to play her. You can even ult and kind of clean up with your melee units. You know? And if your melee units happen to be not positioned well, I'm going to demonstrate how you use the following mechanic. As you can see, Heinrichs has an extra spell now down below. It's control 3. I know I already ulted, but I want to demonstrate. So that's essentially 0 AP, and it has to be near the Vanguard. It covers a lot of ground, surprisingly. So the pros of this build is it really does enable your melee to shine. And that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like, share your thoughts, comments, and so forth. This is my very first build video ever on YouTube, so I'm sorry if it came across as choppy or in some areas and whatnot, but I really tried my best, and I hope you guys find this build fun, at least. So with that, have a good one, and possibly see you in the next build, if there is one. Peace.